Chef Michael again. In this segment, we're going to be completing the baguette process. We're going to be scoring our baguettes, baking our baguettes, and testing for doneness.
So after our bread has had its final shape, we've allowed it to proof a second time, probably for about 25 minutes. So to determine when it's ready to go into the oven, all you need to do is give it a simple press test. So I'm pressing through our plastic, and I'm really gently pressing the top of these baguettes. It's springing right back, which is telling me it's ready to go into the oven. Our oven has been preheated to 500 degrees, as hot as your oven will go. I'm now going to introduce this water that I was talking about for steaming purposes. So I'm going to pour this water into the bottom of our oven into a pan, and it's going to create a really nice steamy environment for our bread. The last thing we'll do before our baguettes go into the oven is score the top of the baguettes. Be careful when you remove your plastic not to tear the top of your beautifully shaped bread. I have a knife that's designed for scoring. However, if you don't have one of these at home, certainly use a sharp chef's knife. You could use a scalpel, anything that's nice and sharp, and it's going to give you a light incision on the top of the bread. You don't want to go too deep. You also want to make sure you're actually cutting into the bread. This cutting into the bread allows us to release some of the gas so the bread actually holds its shape. When you're scoring your baguettes, I try to only do 3 incisions, and I'm running with the length of the bread. I'm not going crosswise. So I'm doing 3 long incisions, very light, not flattening my bread, and I'm running with the length of the bread. These are now ready for our 500-degree oven. I gauge my bread on color as far as doneness. So when it looks nice and golden brown, your bread is definitely done. If you don't trust yourself or you're worried about the inside of the bread perhaps being a little undercooked or a little gummy, you can always use what is called an InstaRead thermometer. Take the temperature of the bread. All bread should be right around 200 degrees. It's been about 15 minutes. I believe our baguettes are ready. Let's test. What I'm looking for primarily is color. Our baguettes have gotten nice and golden brown. You can turn them over and do a knock on the bottom. And if they sound hollow, which they do, that's also a good indication they're done. Like I mentioned earlier, if you can't tell that your baguette is done, simply take your thermometer, insert your thermometer, and it should read 200 degrees. And we are there. At this point in time, I like to transfer my baguettes onto a rack as quickly as possible. It's going to prevent them from steaming and sogging that really nice crust that we have. I'll let them thoroughly cool down on the rack, and then they're ready for eating.
That concludes the baguette making process. Hope you learned a little bit about yeast-risen doughs and how to deal with them. Thank you very much. I'm Michael Montgomery from the Culinary School of the Rockies.